Thank you so much, Jenny and Christine, for the wonderful introduction, and I'll try to live up to your praise. Before I start reading poems, just let me say what a thrill and honor it is for me to be this year's holder of the Charles Heimbold Chair in Irish Studies, one of the most sought-after honors available to an Irish writer, and certainly the preeminent prize available to an Irish writer in North America. I thank Villanova University for conferring me with this great honor, and I'm also grateful to Joseph Lennon, Director of Irish Studies, and all of the Villanova family for making my wife Drew and I so welcome here, and your hospitality has been incredible. I also want to express my thanks to Professor John Immerwar and Kathy Burns for their hospitality and efforts on our behalf while we've been here, and to Jim and Kathy Murphy, great people in the Irish Studies community here at Villanova and in Philadelphia. And my reading is part of this great reading series, which brings books and readers and students together. So I'm very grateful to Lisa and Alan for accommodating me in this event. Thanks also to everybody here in the audience for coming out tonight on this blustery kind of night. I thought that the weather was bad today just to interfere with my poetry reading, so it brought out my inherent paranoia. And of course, a special thanks to the Villanova students for coming out tonight. I'm going to begin with a poem entitled "The Pilgrims Emerge from the Forest." And in 2010, my hometown, Enniscorthy, celebrated its 1500th anniversary. It was founded in the year 510 by Saint Senan, who came from the west of Ireland, crossed Ireland, and built a church on the banks of the River Slaney in Enniscorthy. And the ruin of the church is still there. The town is still there. In 2010, there was a year of celebration of this 1500th anniversary. Some of it sacred, some of it profane. So everything from rock and roll concerts to fireworks to conferences. And the final event was an ecumenical prayer service in St. Aidan's Cathedral. So I had the honor of being commissioned to write the poem for this evening. The pilgrims emerge from the forest. Onset of evening, exit the forest. A band of pilgrims descending eastward to the river, clambering over fording stones to pitch camp upward on a rise. Later, around lighted fires, this group from the western lands gathers to eat, sing, chant old songs and sacred psalms. And before laying themselves down to sleep, the pilgrims' fire is kindled high for body heat and to guide homeward on their way those who have lighted out across the untamed lands. As they sleep, wolves emerge from forest deep to guard the scene, while deer form a noble perimeter to the south. Overhead, owls and hawks hold a watchful brief, and obscured farthest in woodland dark, bears stand guard while feigning sleep. In Stygian pools, salmon stall as eels hug fast the lapping shore. The river rocks on the ebbing tide. Onset of morning, early awakening. Senan walks downward to the river, hearing from the forest a sonorous cacophony of songs. 3 hares observe him from a rock. 2 foxes are placed on a broken limb, and flocks of birds have traced a mighty circle in the sky. Senan knows last night's vision and this evening's show are the purest signs. He must bury his staff and woolen cloak, to found a church, build a town, lay some solid markers down, for it is time. He rouses his followers to clear rough ground and fell fine oak trees. The river rocks on the gaining tide. Towns are christened, rivers handed names, and churches built of wood are burned to be replaced by stone. The forest retreats to accommodate the town. On the wind nowadays we hear still the breath of wolf, the breath of bear and deer, the breath of oak that carries home to us a whiff of history's odor and brightest spark. And hawks are provided shelter still in high steeples atop the churches of this town. Old streets carry tales told once again and then another time or two. From this patchwork I can form a mother's face and father's hands, can't you? Voice to stability, community and place, Senon sank deep sleepers in most cherished ground. Letters formed, names on parchment noted down, the Slaney rocks on an ancient tide. And there's no bears or wolves in Enniscorthy nowadays, except the ones that are imagined. But if you have some time sometime, you can go down into the southeast of Ireland to Enniscorthy, and you will see the majestic Slaney that's there still. And I think almost everybody in my family lives there except for myself and a brother, so there's still plenty of walls about the town. This next poem is Returning to the Capital. And this is an imagined trip, an imagined return to Dublin. In Dublin, where I spent 7 years in college, and which is our capital city. But as somebody who grew up in the country, it was a place that we always had mixed feelings about. Because Dubliners, I think, considered themselves to be superior to us. But we felt that we were really superior to Dubliners, or so we were told. Returning to the capital. Though the sun goes down, the path ahead is clear. City lights point to many islands of expectation. A waiting cable car, an open cafe beside a busy convenience store, a lively downtown bar, a kiosk where owners smiled zestfully at all walkers crossing into his radar field. It is a zone of hope in the tribal city. Tablecloth, bread, unfolded chairs, a waiter writing in his order book your spoken words. Your guest has placed her hands into a posture of denial, screwed her face, laugh loudly as you complete for her sentences to restore her ease. You note how, in the waiter's book of life, words are stripped of stress and umlaut, how among travelers and cosmopolitans, locals assume but walk on roles. For as long as you have lived, you have sensed the limits of your wisdom, though now, turning towards 60, you note how much uncertainty has helped you uncover truths placed idly under stones. It was decades ago when you loitered by the bus shelter for the girl that did not show. Now, yours is a bleached and softer voice, while the city's tone is tuneful to the heart, your guest's face just radiant. So that is Dublin. Another part of Ireland that is very important to me and to my family is in County Sligo in the west. And we manage to spend some time there every year. And so this is just a short series of snapshots of time spent near Lough Arrow in County Sligo. Lakeside Falling, County Sligo. 1. Look at the lake. Point out the lopped hemlocks. Observe our full moon hanging in a pine's curve. 2. June on Lough Arrow. 2 swallows forage for flies. All of our origins dot, breast-like and tomb-like, this old land. Carramore, Lobby Rock, Cromlock, many acreages of sleep on the hillsides, a cloudburst battering the sheds at dawn. 3. The fox turned its back to the lake. The wind did not bother the slipway. We debated the merits of turquoise. The evening was grey and the water was cold. Rain fell from the edges of sheds. The white rabbit pounded the perimeters of its cage. 4. The moon illuminated the lake. The trout were in motion. I asked for your hand and the sound of your voice, the love of your children, the moorhen's refrain. And the moorhen, of course, is a homage to Yeats, who was fond of them and wrote about them in a number of his poems. I'll shift now to some American poems. And I think, as was pointed out in the introduction, that I have two lives, an Irish life and an American life, and they kind of come together and separate in various ways. And before I came to America, I wrote poems, but I didn't really have anything to write about. So when I came to America, I got some life experience and other things that made it possible to write poems. This poem is called "The Last Cricket of the Season," and it's based on a short sonnet written by Elizabeth Bishop. And so this is a poem, a little poem about walking through Missouri on a summer's evening. The last cricket of the season. When I catch a cricket's high autumnal pitch sprung from among a row of ragged junipers, my heart seeks out the levelest and most insistent homeward foot and yard to my front door. On Missouri's warmest days, these many free and careless years, I have often passed for shade under a great oak tree to observe pairs of doves that quietly group under this same line of evergreens. My children have grown and spread. My sweetheart is at home stirring alone a late martini, and cars roar to the westward freeway bound for glory in California. I grow invisible or gray, which is just the same difference, as they say. But this cricket's call rocks my world. Jimi Hendrix, Rolling Stones. Though cold and colder this evening's air, I can still pitch high, and I can swing homeward as if immortal. And a few years ago, Jesse Lendenny, the editor of Salmon Poetry, who has published my books of poems, decided to do an anthology of poems about dogs. And so she put out a request for people to write poems about dogs. And people wrote all kinds of poems, and the book was published. And I was stumped writing the poem, because I didn't really have a poem to write about dogs that I could think of. So I asked another poet what he was going to do, and he said, well, his suggestion for a poem had been turned down by the editor. And his suggestion was, can I write a poem about being attacked by a dog? And so this was not considered a right kind of poem in the right spirit, and because the book was in celebration of dogs, and most of the profits from the book were to go to dog rescue, which is a very good, rather dog rescue, whereas this other poet was thinking of people rescue, maybe rather than a dog rescue. So one night I was on the train from Dublin to Galway, and I'd finished my book. I'd read the newspaper that somebody had left on another table, and the tea cart had gone by twice and was not coming back again. So I sat down and wrote my dog poem. So I'm going to read that for you now. And the poem was printed as the last poem in the book. And so I always say to people, that could be good or bad, right? If it were done with the Olympics, it would be very bad, right? Because the book is about 300 pages, right? So the last poem wouldn't be in a very good place of honor. But of course, in poetry books, often the last page is quite a significant place. So this poem is in the voice of a dog, and it's set in the middle of Missouri on the Katy Trail. The Katy Trail is the old railway line that was closed down and was made into a trail so that you can cycle or walk from St. Louis to Kansas City. A Life of Pat the Scruff, Chapter 12. Somewhere on the road from St. Louis to Kansas City, my master, or that was how he saw it, keeled over. He hit the ground with a dull thud that rose the dust into a light cloud, the sun high in the July sky, a goner. We were on the Katy Trail, that quite interminable path that replaced a good Missouri railway line, designed for cyclists, walkers, the young and old. For dogs, recreational walking is a definite non-starter. We prefer to ride. The trail we walked over that day was crisscrossed by shadows cast from a long line of poplars, a legacy of Governor Ashcroft, the evangelist. Once to an admiring crowd we had heard the great man sing at an out-of-doors Springfield soiree. My master taught him an improvement on Andy Williams, a crooner he had lately heard in Branson. An evening I spent under a porch, sheltering from driving rain and violent thunder. A man's life. My name, they say, is Pat the Scruff or Scruff the Mutt. I eyed the heap in front of me. A light twig had blown into his pants fold. His pack had rolled harmlessly to the path side. For once he did not jabber. On a fence post a blue jay stood, but I knew better than to bother with a bird. I took to pondering my situation. Nearby I heard a creek's flow, though in no direction could I discern the voice of dog or man. For some, the middle of Missouri can feel like the middle of nowhere. For me, as I look back, it was heaven. To the best of my knowledge, I have never left the state. My master, he was fond of telling strangers, was a direct descendant of Mark Twain's. I was on the verge of something great. He had many sayings. His favorite was one attributed to Harry Truman. It goes, if you want a friend in Washington, get yourself a dog. My master, our ex, would repeat this to me before beating me about the nose with the Kansas City Star. Who is a dog's best friend? Love the one you're with is an old-time song he liked to holler. That day along the Katy Trail, I took the song's message to my heart, moving on, certain I would be befriended soon along the way. In case my old man was merely sleeping, I stepped lively. A gentle breeze blew along the Katy Trail. Who can resist a dog in uniform? To serve the Missouri Highway Patrol had for long been the most earnest of my desires. For many years I had dreamed of riding on a cruiser's soft leather as my partner at the wheel chased, in hot pursuit, packs of dirt bags and hardened criminals. In my heart, I have always felt the siren's wail. Little did I know that day in mid-Missouri that those dreams were about to be realized. So that was my dog poem, and the thank you. And that's right. And the publisher, of course, asked, would there be any other parts to it? Because she thought that there was going to be chapter 1 and chapter 20, but I left it at that. All right. I'll read a poem for the students that are here this evening. I wrote this poem when my son went away to college. And it seemed to me a very sentimental poem, so I put it in a drawer and didn't show it to anybody. And then when I finished this manuscript, I also sent the poems that I didn't include in the manuscript to the publisher. So she insisted that I put this poem in it. And it is sentimental, but she said this is the kind of poem that should be sentimental. It's called Your Rivers Have Trained You. You've got to leave home. You don't want to do it too soon or leave it too long. Your rivers have trained you, oceans prepare you, lakes have assumed you. One night on Loch Arrow, as the boat closed in on the humpback bridge at the end of the channel, you piloted me firmly to shore. You've got to leave home. You pointed to the cairn on the hill, the moonlight-patterned water, a flock of sheep grazing on a sloping field. You don't want to do it too soon. Hudson, Missouri, Mississippi, your rivers are majestic. The Slaney has assumed your face's fair shape. Jesus, see my shadow, my body is becoming air. Or leave it too long. Wrapped in blankets, you were smoothed by the sea. We watched behind poles put in place, halting the tide's progress. When night came in, I raised you about my head as comfort to cold stars. Your rivers have trained you, oceans prepared you, lakes have assumed you. You don't want to do it too soon or leave it too long. So my son has never said anything to me about the poem, which is probably good because he didn't say that he didn't like it. So, all right. I want to read now the title poem from this book, Sailing Lake Mariotis. It's a little bit longer, but the poem came to me one morning in Manhattan, Kansas, the Little Apple. And I woke up early and I left where I was staying with my wife and daughter to go to get breakfast because I thought if I made breakfast in the apartment, I would wake everybody up. So I thought I would go, and since it was early on a Saturday morning, I would find a quiet cafe. So I found a Panera, and the place was absolutely jam-packed with people. And I didn't know at the time it was homecoming day, Big 12 football, Kansas State against Iowa State. And of course, a lot of these people were farm people, so it was 8 o'clock on a Saturday morning, and this was probably a late breakfast for them, you know. So I got the idea from the poem by being in this Panera for breakfast. And I was also thinking of football, and American football and soccer, which is the football, what football was often called where I grew up. And I also wanted to try to bring together some of things that join and separate Americans from immigrants. And the title comes from a lake in Egypt outside of Alexandria. And Lake Mariotis, depending on your how you think of it, joins Alexandria to Egypt or separates it from it, just in the sense as the Atlantic joins Ireland to the United States or separates Ireland from the United States. So this is just some thoughts on this. And this is one of the prose narrative. The Saturday world glides by as I look towards Setchild Road. I am eating breakfast at Panera Bread. Plain bagel, coffee in a paper cup. Throughout the cafe and parking lot, this bright late October morning, homecomers in wildcat purple are assembling in great numbers to rehearse the K-State battle song. In a little while, breakfast over with, boozy tailgate parties winding down, a momentous battle greater than Agincourt will take place. The homecoming football game is scheduled for early afternoon at Bill Snyder Family Football Stadium. Kansas State Wildcats versus the Cyclones of Iowa State. I am in Manhattan, Kansas, the Little Apple, this weekend to visit my youngest child who is a student here. Loyal to a T, I have pinned my hopes on the Kansas State football team, though the inner workings of the game are a source of some confusion to me. This is the middle of the Flint Hills, a sacred place as I have learned from Prairie Earth, at the center of a vast and confusing country called the United States of America. Rest assured that I am a citizen, though when I say this to people, they do not tend to heed me. The hills roll gently here. There is an ease in how the local people walk. The air is crisp, the light is fixed and fine. A country person myself, I find myself among my own kind. On my way here this morning, I saw a coyote wandering the edges of a cut corn field. Exiting the cafe by the rear door, I crossed the parking lot to join a group of men and women gathered in front of a row of dumpsters to which the title of Midwest Waste has been conferred. They are drinking some coffee from paper cups, others soda pops from aluminum cans. After presenting my credentials, immigrant from Ireland, they smile, relax, resume their conversation. I join a man from Honduras. We speak of home, family, work, green cards, homeland security raids. When I note that there exists no such person, in my view, as the illegal alien, he does not disagree. 3 women joined the group on break from work, a Filipino, a Bosnian, and an older woman from Quito, Ecuador, who is given a red milk crate to sit down on. Her husband is a roofing company supervisor, she tells me, while she herself has been making Mexican tacos these 27 years in Kansas and Missouri. Finding a second crate, I seat myself beside Maria Dolores Suarez. She explains how in ancient times, more in this time than today, Lake Mareotis separated Alexandria from Egypt, and that Alexandria, as has been pointed out, was ad and not in Egyptium. She recounts for me sundry facts concerning the history of the area that surrounds Alexandria, points out how the lake itself was degraded. Many of the terms she provides I have not heard of, and therefore do not understand. An old sailor settled in Quito, as far away from the sea as he could be, would sit after dinner with my father in the white courtyard of our building's core, she said. As they smoked their cigars, the sailor often spoke of Egypt. A child, she recalls, I sat in the shadows listening, my job to fetch coffee when my father raised an arm. As immigrants, Maria Dolores Suarez says to me, we pass our lifetimes sailing Lake Mareotis. On a light craft, each of us has left Alexandria for Egypt. Our journey occurs in ancient times when the region was known to Virgil for the excellence of its wines. Lake Mareotis is vibrant, stretching far away towards distant sands. We approach the mainland without ever arriving. On our approach, the land affects the smoothest of turns away from us, like a lover shifting away from one considered lame. We are in the United States. It is undeniable, though we are not of it. As a wise man wrote not long ago, no matter where we settle, we will all go gray walking along our childhood avenues. Both the Alexandria we have departed from and the Egypt we approach are visible and lighted. However, we do not ever exit Lake Mareotis, Maria Dolores Suarez concludes. A man bearing a television set emerges from the rear of Wendy's. Behind him, a long electric cable stretches back into his place of employment. He is greeted fondly by the gathered crowd. When he is settled in properly on top of a dumpster, the new arrival turns the television on. A reprise of the recent El Clasico from the Bernabeu is about to commence. Real Madrid versus Barcelona. Look, Maria Dolores Suarez from Quito, Ecuador, shouts to her 2 lady companions. There's my man, sexy Javier Mascherano from Argentina. We watch the game together, quietly, intently, call back onto a familiar stage, a warm curtain drawn between us and the United States. Throwing my cup into the dumpster, I wave goodbye and take the longer route round to the front entrance of Panera Bread, and once there, hold the door for a long line of exiting Wildcat fans. Big 12 football homecoming game. To a man, woman, and child, they are happy, friendly, purple, and appreciative of my quiet gesture. You are welcome, I say, and good luck against Iowa State today. In the cafe, I ordered 2 hot breakfasts to go for my wife and daughter, who will surely have woken up by now. Go Wildcats. Thank you. So obviously there is more than one team of Wildcats in the world, so I thought it was appropriate to read that poem here this evening. I'll read a few more. In this book, my father hovers over it in various ways, and my father would love to be here this evening because he loved universities. And one of the reasons he loved universities was that he left school when he was 14, and he became a journalist in a way probably that's not possible nowadays in journalism, that he was apprenticed to a newspaper, and so he and I think because his own education was quite short, he wanted everybody else to have a longer education and to go to college. His two best assignments as a journalist was one in the Second World War, when the Luftwaffe dropped bombs on the Wexford-Carlow border. He was home for the weekend visiting his parents, and he had to cycle out on his bicycle to get the story. And of course the story was carried in the Irish papers, and I think in other places too. And he often spoke about that. And his other one was he reported on the 1948 Olympics in London, and he was assigned to cover rowing. And he said this was amusing since he didn't know one end of a boat from the other, but he got to cover the rowing. And I think the rowing ended before a lot of the athletics began, so he was able to do his work and then go to watch that. And he continued writing until the end of his life, and he published his last article at the age of 89 years of age, which was a piece. He tried to pawn it off on me to write it, but I didn't take the bait, so he had to write it himself, about a Wexford person who was in the Canadian Mounted Police and had done some heroic things. So I think Irish writers, maybe all writers, were responsible for the living and the dead, and both the living and the dead, of course, are with us all the time. So this is just part of a poem, the last part of a poem I wrote for my dad, and it's about returning to Missouri after he died, and my dad, of course, coming into the house to make his visit and to, in some way, to provide comfort and that. One night in deepest winter, my father called me out onto the landing of my American home. I found him seated on a rocking chair, his radio tuned to NPR. Though he held a rosary, he was not that tuned into prayer. Rather, he ran the wooden pieces through his fingers playfully to hold time as Frank Sinatra sang. Outside, a northwest wind pushed with a scraping noise honeysuckle limbs against the wood frame exterior of my house, so that, listening and quite distracted, I was reminded of Mr. Lockwood's first night resident in Wuthering Heights. My father wore a three-piece pinstripe suit, starched white shirt, his tie shaped elegantly into a Windsor knot, so that everything of his bearing was as neat and as precise as I would have expected it to be. It was the middle of the night, late February, Missouri. I had been sleeping, my family out of town, my father adjusting his radio to low. 3 years ago, he said, we spoke for an hour about the monastery that day, the ringing bell that pulled us apart like jewelers in a forlorn western scene. We spoke of what you remembered, I reminded him, and all I could recall, and concluded, both of us too shy to say it, that neither word nor silence divides us. Naked, we stand together on an open plain. I have come to you, my father said, to teach you how the Windsor knot is tied, so that all will know how you are kin to me. Quick, put an iron shirt on, grab some ties. I have but little time to linger in your lovely home. And I will read one more poem and then finish. And again, let me thank everybody in the Villanova community for the hospitality that you've provided both me and my wife Drew here, and also to everybody for coming out tonight, this windy night, for the reading. I was worried when I was here first that people would blame me for bringing all the bad weather. You know, that I was somehow I would be responsible. But people have been so kind as to apologize for the weather. You know, so I think us people raised Irish Catholics, we always think that everything is our fault, right? You know, I'm always to blame ourselves. This poem, this final poem, is called "Evening on a Back Road," and there's a little road between River Chapel, County Wexford, and Camolan, County Wexford, and it's one of those Irish roads that's covered with trees, and the trees join together at the top, so it seems like you are going through a tunnel. And it's the road that my daughter always told me that this is where the fairies live, you know, and it has that enchanting Irish kind of quality. And it's a poem about being in a car. Evening on a back road. Scattered sheets of cloud and a late burst of sunlight tangle with tree limb and oak leaf between the seaside and Camolan. I drive blinded again on the back road by an old sun falling away to the Blackstairs mast. For all these years along this route I have called out to a fat church spire at the end of a line of yew trees that never could despoil the ripened shamelessness of fields bedded on layers of wet marl. Beasts heave and breed, the road bends over the hump bridge. The road is within me, so blindly drifting. It is itself, and the wind's lone grey substitute, as full of movement as the railway sleepers are dipped in creosote and fixed to a narrow gauge. Cows swing from the church bell's rope. Sugar beets bolt from the ground. As the strawberry absorbs the dew, the widower discounts the news. The priest's housekeeper has turned his stereo up to 25. Meeting the river band at the main road, I pick from neon each yellow of the village. A petrol station, Wexford flags, and the Parkside bar. So then, the road straightens, the car picks up speed. Thank you very much.